Hello friends, it's Lisa and welcome to a reading vlog where I am going to be reading some of my anticipated releases of 2024 that have recently been released. So I actually just got finished filming an anticipated releases video of May through August book releases, and I do anticipated releases videos every year. I've been doing them since I started my channel. I just love talking about new book releases, but then do I ever actually read the books I'm excited about? That's questionable. So there have been some exciting book releases, specifically some romance releases that have come out within the last month. So I thought it'd be fun to do a vlog reading some of these releases. So as of right now, I'm planning on reading 3 different book releases that have come out this year, and they're all romance books. I thought it'd be fun to focus on the romance genre just because I do love romance books so much. And these 3 books are some of my most anticipated releases of the whole year. So I just thought it'd be perfect to do. So one of the books we're going to be reading in this vlog was kind of the thing that inspired this entire vlog and why I wanted to document my reactions to these books, because I got this book in the mail, held it in my hands, just instantly wanted to read it, but knew I wanted to share my thoughts with you all. And that's Funny Story by Emily Henry. I'm so excited to be holding this. This is Emily Henry's newest release, and I cannot wait to get into this. I have really enjoyed all of Emily Henry's other adult contemporary romance books, but I also know that a lot of people are not loving this one as much as some of her other ones. I know it's ending up on the bottom of a lot of people's rankings, so I feel like I'm going into it with reasonable expectations. I also am not someone that has given every other Emily Henry 5 stars, so I'm okay if this is still a 4-star read. I know I'm going to love it regardless of if it's my new favorite, just because it's Emily Henry. I love her characters, I love her banter, I love her romances, so I think it's gonna be a good time. Another author that actually gives me Emily Henry vibes, I feel like what I've read from this author makes me feel the way that I feel when I read Emily Henry, and so we are also going to be reading Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. This is Abby Jimenez's newest release. Also, there's something in this book. What is going on here? The way I just opened up to a random page and that's what it looks like. What's happening here? Is that supposed to be there? I just saw another drawing of dogs or cats or something. Is that intentional? Okay, maybe I should not flip through the book. Anyway, Abby Jimenez, romance, so excited. I obviously will give a better description of all of these books when we actually start reading them, but I know this has fake dating, which is one of my favorite tropes when it's done well, and it's Abby Jimenez, so I'm thinking it's gonna be done well. I just can't wait to get into this. And somewhat differently to Funny Story, pretty much every review I see of this is 5 stars and people are saying it's their favorite book of the year or one of their favorite books of the year, so I'm very excited about this. And then the third book that I think I'm going to also be reading in this vlog is Wild Love by Elsie Silver. This is the first book in a new series by Elsie Silver. She wrote the Chestnut Spring series, which I love. I have such a good time with it, and I'm just really excited to start another series from her. We got introduced to the main male character in this book in the last Chestnut Springs book, and it's actually Willa from Heartless. It's her brother, so there's definitely still a connection to the Chestnut Spring series with this new series, so I think that's going to be fun, and I don't really know what to expect from it. I don't know if people are loving it. That's one where I really haven't seen many reviews of it so far, so I'm excited to get into that one as well. So these 2 books, as well as Wild Love, are going to be the TBR for this anticipated romance release vlog, and we'll just see where the rest of the vlog takes us, and we'll see what I pick up first.
And now I'm awake in the middle of the night, wishing I had a little more time, thinking how all the years kept flying by, flying by. I'm awake in the middle of the night, I knew that everything would be alright.
So I have started the first book for this vlog. I started Wild Love by Elsie Silver. I'm not super far. I'm on chapter 7, which is 13% of the way through, so not very far, but I can kind of gauge a little bit of the setup for the story. So we're following Rosie and Ford, which I can't say I know how I feel about the name Ford, but he's actually related to one of the characters from the Chestnut Spring series, which is a fun tie-in. But the 2 of them kind of grew up together. Ford and his family would come and visit Rose Hill, which is the place where all of these books in this new series are going to be taking place. This is the new Chestnut Springs. So Ford and his family would come to Rose Hill to stay for the summer, and Ford is best friends with Rosie's brother Weston, so that is how they kind of knew each other. But the 2 of them always gave each other a hard time. They were always bickering and picking on one another, and that was just kind of their relationship. It didn't seem like it was like too malicious, but they just kind of had that sort of banter between them. And now we're flashing forward to when they're adults, and Ford is very successful within the music industry, and he is attempting to open up his own like production recording studio in his like backyard. He has this barn on his property that he is turning into this recording studio, and one day he's there, he's working on cleaning it out, and this 12-year-old girl shows up and is like, hey, you're my dad. But Ford's daughter that he's just found out about has come to him because her family's going through a very difficult situation, and she doesn't really have anyone else in her family, and her mom desperately needs to get help for like her mental health, and so she needs like someone to kind of take her in, or she'll end up going into the foster care system. And Ford is like, yeah, I would be an awful person if I just let that happen and like turned a blind eye. So of course he takes her in and is like, well, guess I'm a dad. How do I do this? And then we have Rosie, which the fact that this town is called Rose Hill and the main character's name is Rosie, I need Elsie Silver to acknowledge that at some point, or I'm just gonna think she couldn't think of another name for her main character. Like, what is with that? Anyway, but Rosie recently has lost her job. I don't know, like honestly, Elsie Silver book descriptions give you basically nothing to go off of, and I feel like this is something that's important for people to know about before going into the book. But she ends up dealing with some like sexual harassment in her workplace, and she's like, hey, that's not cool, I'm gonna take it to HR. And she goes home, and then the next day she goes into work like trying to hype herself up to go into HR, but it turns out that this guy went before her and managed to convince them of his story, I guess. So then she ends up being the one that's fired. Love being a woman. So on top of losing her job that she was already like, it didn't seem like she was very happy there. She seemed like she was trying to convince herself that she liked this job. And on top of that, she is also in a relationship that she doesn't feel really happy in. She's been friends with this guy for a long time, but they've been like in a relationship for the past couple years. And she's just realizing like, I think I'm falling out of love with him, but I don't know like how to tell that. Like, I don't know what I'm feeling. So she's like, well, I'm gonna go back to Rose Hill, stay with my brother for a bit while I figure things out. And so obviously she gets there and she runs into Ford for the first time in many years. And obviously now he has a kid. So she's like, what's going on here? But yeah, it seems like we're just gonna be following them as they navigate their lives and these new changes to their lives, but also I think reconnecting, potentially falling in love. It seems as though Ford has kind of been in love with her this whole time. So love that. So yeah, I'm not super far. All I've really read so far is that setup for this story. But I am liking it so far. There's something so easy to read about Elsie Silver's writing in the way she's able to just kind of like suck you in right at the beginning and make you feel like you're not just starting a book. And like sometimes, you know, when you read a book, you're reading the first few chapters and you're like getting introduced to the characters, you're getting all the setup, and you're just like trying to keep everything straight. You're figuring out what's going on. But something about the way that she writes her books, it's like, it's so easy to just be like, oh yeah, like, here we go, we're so back. Like, it doesn't feel like I'm just getting introduced to these characters. It feels like I've already known them. And I don't know, something about the way that she just writes her books, it's just very easy to get into. But I was kind of feeling like, I feel like this book's missing something, and I'm really trying so hard not to compare it to the Chestnut Spring series because I did love that series a lot. But like, I don't know if Rose Hill's gonna hit the way Chestnut Springs is gonna hit, and like, where are the cowboys? We're missing the cowboys. So I don't know if I'm gonna love it as much as the Chestnut Spring series. I'm trying hard not to compare it because I don't think that's fair, but it's hard not to. And especially like with the Chestnut Springs series, the third book in the series, which, can I remember the name? Hopeless, maybe? I don't know. I still get them all confused. The only one that I am like 100% certain on all the time is Heartless, because that's the second one and my favorite one in the series. But the third one is the one where there's like the least amount of cowboys and like the least amount of time spent in Chestnut Springs. It's the least yeehaw in the series, and it's my least favorite in the series because of that. So I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna vibe with Elsie Silver if there's no yeehaw. I mean, I will say like this town and like the way they're describing like their houses, it does still feel very like rustic, and like I think they have like ranch style houses, and he has like a recording studio in a barn, so like the vibes are kind of there, but it's not exactly the same. So I don't know, I don't know how I'm going to feel about it, but so far it's fine. I think I'm liking it, but again, I'm not super far, so we're just gonna have to see where it goes. I also know that I said in the intro that I hadn't really seen a ton of reviews for this book, which kind of is surprising because of how popular the Chestnut Springs series was. I would think that the first Elsie Silver book following that I would see everywhere. And I hadn't really seen a lot of reviews until the day I started it. I went out to Goodreads and I was gonna just like, you know, mark it as currently reading. And the first thing on my feed when I opened Goodreads was someone reviewing this book and giving it 2 stars. So I'm a little scared. I just don't know if this is gonna hit the way the Chestnut Spring series hit for me. But I'm also like, again, trying not to compare, and also just like, I don't know, like I'm just here for a good time. We'll see what happens. I'm gonna keep my expectations low and we'll just see where it goes. But yeah, not super far. Liking it so far, interested in the premise and gonna see where it goes, because obviously like I just know that these characters have come back to this town that they've kind of grown up in and they're reconnecting for the first time in many years, and I don't really know what the plot is going to be beyond that. So excited to keep reading, nervous but excited. All right, friends, it's a few days later and I have finally finished Wild Love by Elsie Silver. I actually finished this a few days ago, so hopefully I can remember all of my thoughts. I have them written down, so hopefully, fingers crossed, this is all gonna make sense. But I started this vlog with Wild Love because of all of the books I'm reading in this vlog, I thought I was going to enjoy them all, but that this one might end up not being my favorite. I figured funny story and just for the summer, I would like more than this one, but I still expected to like this one. However, that was not the case. I ended up giving this 2.5 stars. So I really do hope that I'm right, that I'm starting this vlog with my least favorite and that it only goes up from here, because I really didn't enjoy this. And while I was like writing down my thoughts before coming on here to chat about them, I realized like my 2.5 star rating might be a bit more generous. Like I think I might lower it to just like a straight up 2. I don't know. I feel like I have a hard time narrowing down my ratings when they're lower. Like I feel like I know my rating system well when it's like 3 stars and above for the most part. But when I dislike a book, I feel like I have a harder time narrowing down exactly how I want to rate it. But I think this might be a 2 star. I don't know. I unfortunately just really didn't like this. I think the biggest thing with romance is the characters, and I specifically, but I just think like generally with romance, like you want to feel connected with the characters. You want to be rooting for them both in their like individual journeys as characters, but also as a couple in a relationship. Like you are rooting for this romance, and I just didn't really feel connected to these characters. I didn't really care about them at all, and so I think it made it hard for me to root for their romance. And I think generally that's kind of a problem when it comes to the romance genre. You want to care for these characters, but also I think Elsie Silver specifically really writes character-driven romance books. Like there really isn't much of a plot to a lot of her books, which for me with like the Chestnut Spring series, I didn't mind because I felt really connected with all of those characters for the most part. So the fact that she does write such character-driven romances has worked for me in the past because I've been connected with them. I feel like this time that just didn't work because I didn't really love Rosie or Ford. So kind of the whole like premise for this book and how these characters kind of come together is that Rosie starts working for Ford. He is trying to obviously get this barn set up to become a recording studio. He's trying to finish working on it and get everything squared away with that. But now he has this 12-year-old daughter that he didn't know about that has come into his life. So he's trying to figure out all of this, and she's like, I need a job, you need help, hire me to basically be like your assistant, like I can help you out. So that is how the two of them end up spending a lot more time together. But they've known each other since their childhood, and this dynamic between them has always been like they've always kind of gotten under each other's skin, like they're always bickering, and that's just kind of how their relationship has always worked. They kind of just like assume that the other hates each other, and they just always like have bickered. And that was something that kind of stayed consistent throughout this whole book. Even when the romance picked up, their banter leaned more towards bickering and like arguing and like getting under each other's skin. And I think it could have been fun again if I cared for these characters. I didn't really like them. So the banter and the bickering that they had just kind of irritated me after a while. Like once we got to the end of the book, I was like, okay, we need to get over this. Like I've had enough of this bickering that they're constantly doing with one another. And especially Rosie, to me, she was kind of a brat. And the thing was is that like she fully admitted it. Like there's a whole scene where she like in her like inner monologue says that she acts like a brat, that she's being like bratty and annoying. And sorry, I can't figure out where to put my camera. It's not staying where I want it to be. But yeah, she has like moments where she fully admits that she's being childish and she's acting like a brat. And so at least she's self-aware, but that also was part of why I didn't really like her character. I just kind of felt like she would be really immature at times. And again, like that bickering banter that the two of them had with one another just kind of got on my nerves after a while. And Ford as a character, listen, I apologize in advance. I thought this man was so bland. I just was expecting so much more from him. The way, like at the beginning of the book, like the dedication to the book, she says like, for those of you who haven't found your person, like there's always Ford Grant. The way Elsie Silver and other like readers of this book hyped up Ford Grant before I got into this book, I was expecting this man to be like top tier everything to me, and then he turned out to be the most bland character. Like, I don't understand. Like, there definitely were some moments where he did nice things for her and like I liked moments, but it just, I don't know, he just didn't really have much of a personality other than the fact that he was a billionaire, which was a whole other issue I had with this book. Because Ford, yes, he's a billionaire, but don't worry, he's a cool billionaire. Like, the justification every time they would mention the fact that he had a lot of money just got on my nerves. I don't know what it was about the way that he was written and him being a billionaire was written, but it just grinded my gears. I just found it so irritating. Like, within the very first chapter, the book opens up with Weston, whatever his name is, Ford's best friend, who's also Rosie's brother. It opens up with him telling Ford that he has been named the world's hottest billionaire, and then that's kind of like a joke throughout the whole book. But then immediately following that, Ford's like, yeah, like, I'm a billionaire, but like I worked really hard for my money, even though he's literally a Nepo baby. But my dad, even though he was rich, he like made us work for our money and like learn the value of money. Like, I would not be here if I didn't work hard. And I also give to charity, and I also like don't use my money. And I like, it just was like the justification behind it. I was like, girl, just write him as a billionaire, like move on. Like, I don't know, it was just weird. Like, I understand why it was being justified, because clearly Elsie Silver, like, there were moments where it was like he had like a private jet, and there's a whole scene with that, and she was like, the daughter gave him crap for owning a private jet, and it was like Elsie's beliefs almost felt like they were like seeping into writing a billionaire. Like, she was trying to justify, like, he's a billionaire, but this is how I actually feel, like, don't get mad at me. But it was just annoying because even most of the book, like, he didn't even feel like a billionaire. Like, they didn't really, like, they would occasionally mention the world's hottest billionaire thing, but they didn't really act like one. So I feel like that, honestly, that could have just not been a part of the book. Like, I get that she kind of established it in the Chestnut Spring series, but I don't know, I'm like, it didn't feel like he necessarily had to be a billionaire because he wasn't really written like one. Like, a lot of the scenes where they were working in their barn, like, I don't know, it didn't really feel necessary until it became relevant to the plot and Ford took Rosie on his private jet, and he tells her that like Cora, his daughter, gave him crap for having a private jet, which as she should, but he doesn't really comment on it. He's like, oh yeah, Cora just like gave me crap for it. And he was saying that he took Cora on his private jet because they were going to visit her mom, and it was like what would be a 3-hour drive, and Rosie's like, that's literally a 3-hour drive. And he was like, yeah, but we had to be back here by a certain time. And I'm like, you know, most normal people, if they have to go somewhere and then be back home by a certain time, they just leave early. Like, you make do. Like, I just don't understand. So I didn't really like the way him as a billionaire was written, because it was like, I'm not a terrible billionaire because I do all of these things, and I don't do these things with my money, but also I still have a private jet, and I still don't understand the privilege of that until there is a scene where Rosie's like, you're a billionaire, you have privilege, and he's like, oh my god, you're so right. I don't know, I didn't like that aspect of the book at all. And then on top of it, Ford was just a very bland character. Maybe if he had a bit more of a personality, perhaps I would be able to look by that, but nope. And mentioning Cora, his daughter, I did like some of the scenes with her. Like, I did like the kind of relationship and little family that formed between Cora, Ford, and Rosie. Like, I thought some of those moments were really sweet, but I also didn't love necessarily the way Cora was written, because she's supposed to be 12 years old, and I get that the circumstances of her life made her mature faster, and that maybe she would act more mature than a 12-year-old, but I don't know, the way the characters would talk to her, it's like she should have been like 16. Like, I don't know, she didn't act like a 12-year-old, and the characters didn't treat her like one. But then there would also be times where they would like baby her and like see her as like this really young child. So it was like, I just didn't really know exactly how Cora was supposed to be written. I also wish we had seen more of the kind of arc between Ford becoming this father figure to Cora, because it starts off with the book, you know, at the beginning, he gets introduced to this 12-year-old daughter he didn't know he had, and is like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to connect with her. I don't know how to care for her. What do? I don't know who this person is, to being a very loving, caring, protective father. And it was great that we got there in the end, but I feel like we did not see the journey to get there. And I wish we had seen more of that. I wish we had more scenes with him and Cora and them developing this father-daughter relationship to get to the point where it felt like, oh, like he is protective and caring of her because of this journey that they went on. It just felt like there was a switch turn and then all of a sudden he cared for her. The best way I can describe it is like what happens in the classic film, The Game Plan, with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Madison Pettis. That journey that they go on as father and daughter, that's what I wanted out of this book. And we did not get that. It just all of a sudden was like, I don't know what to do with this child. Oh wait, I actually love and care for her so much and that I will protect her with my entire life, which like good, as you should. But where was the journey to that? I don't know. And there was also another thing that I disliked, which is why I'm like, the more I'm talking about it, I'm like, what did I like about this book? I liked the small town vibes. I liked some of the side characters, which I will say makes me intrigued to continue on with the series because each book's going to follow a different character. So the second book is going to be following West or Weston. I still can't remember his name. The brother to Rosie, the best friend to Ford. He's going to be the main character in the second book. So I would be interested in continuing on with the series to see these side characters get their love stories, but we'll see. I don't know. I did like the side characters, so that's one positive thing as well. But that's why I'm like, I feel like my 2.5 star might even be too generous because there's so many things I didn't enjoy. And the biggest thing that made me go from this book is fine, I'm not loving it, but it's fine, to actively starting to get annoyed with it. Basically, I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil anybody, but I've already mentioned it in the video. It's also like within the first few chapters of this book, you find out that Rosie has a boyfriend at the beginning of the book. Obviously, you know they're gonna break up at some point because she has to be with Ford. Like, that's the romance. I was like, okay, like they're gonna break up at some point, fine. The way in which the Rosie and boyfriend breakup to her being with Ford situation happened, I didn't like it. I don't want to say too much because, again, spoilers, but there's like a couple of chapters where there was a bit of a transition and between like Rosie being with her boyfriend to being with Ford, and I don't love the way that was done. I don't know, I feel like maybe the way I'm saying this makes it seem like it was one thing that happened and it's not quite one thing. I don't know how to say without spoilers, but I didn't like that. I didn't like the way that whole situation was handled. The Rosie breaking up with her boyfriend to being with Ford thing, I just didn't like that transition. So then it just kind of set me up to be annoyed with Ford and also just like not really care about their relationship because I was annoyed with that. So yeah, there definitely were some things that I found irritating about this book, and also just some things I think just didn't work for me. I could see people enjoying this. I think, again, the biggest thing for me was that I just didn't really like the characters, and that does feel like such an important, integral part to reading a romance book. So I think if you like these characters and you care for their like relationship and the romance that develops between them, I think you would like this. I just didn't really care for that. So all of the smaller issues that I've mentioned just seemed more apparent because I didn't really care for these characters. I couldn't really look past those things. And to me, honestly, this book just kind of felt like Elsie Silver was trying to recreate the magic that happened with Heartless, which is the second book in the Chestnut Spring series. That's my favorite book in that series. I think that's like generally a fan favorite from that series. I feel like there were a lot of elements and like personality traits of the characters, just a lot of things that felt like she was trying to kind of replicate in a slightly different way in this book, but it just didn't land. This was Heartless, but if Heartless was bad. Sorry, that was really mean. But yeah, I don't know. I could tell that she was trying to recreate that magic, and for me, it just didn't work.
Maybe it's a good thing, got a good thing coming, it's a good thing, that we're not who we used to be. We're not who we used to be, and maybe that's a good thing.
All right, hello. Ooh, okay. Camera's propped up on my bed, which means anytime I move, it shakes. So I apologize. I'll try to sit very still. But I have started my next read for this video, and it's one obviously I'm very excited about, and already is going so much better than Wild Love, and that's Funny Story by Emily Henry. I'm not surprised that she isn't letting me down. So I am on chapter 11, page 116. So I kind of know what the general vibe of the book is. We're following Daphne, who was recently engaged to this guy named Peter and ends up dumping her to be with his childhood best friend, Petra. And Petra also had a partner when Peter and Petra, their names being so similar is really annoying to me, but when they decided to ditch their partners to be together, like she was also dating somebody named Miles, and now Daphne and Miles are actually living together because Miles just lost his roommate with Petra. So Daphne's like, hey, I also need a place to stay because I just got kicked out of my home because this guy dumped me. So they end up moving in together. They are now roommates. Everyone's thinking of the Vine. Do I need to say it? So the two of them are now living together, and one night they end up getting an invitation to Peter and Petra's wedding, which is just so mean to send them an invitation. I think that they think that they're doing a nice thing, but it's not really that nice. So when Miles and Daphne later on that night end up getting a bit into a drunken haze, they decide, let's RSVP. Let's do it. Not only do they RSVP, but they also tell them that they're together. So it's gonna be kind of a fake dating situation. There haven't been too many situations where they've had to pretend to be together, so I don't think it's too heavy on the fake dating, but they are telling their exes who are now engaged that they're together. So that's kind of fun, kind of petty, but also totally deserved. These people are so annoying to me. But yeah, so far we've really just seen Daphne and Miles like living together and getting to know one another. Daphne like moved to Waning Bay in Michigan, which is a fake town, but you know, hey ho. But she moved there because of Peter and now has like not really seen much of the town. And so Miles is like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take you around. I'm gonna introduce you to all the spots because your ex didn't really do that. And I'm gonna show you all the good things this town has to offer so you don't feel like you have to uproot your life because of this man and leave. So she's like, okay, sure. And I am really liking it so far. There's something just so comforting about Emily Henry. I have read all of her adult contemporary romances and they are not all 5 stars for me, but they're all enjoyable and just so comforting because I think what to expect going into them. I know that the writing is going to be great. The characters are going to be really relatable and really lovable, and they're going to be really funny, and the banter between the characters is going to be really great. And a lot of times these characters are also going through their own personal journeys that tend to be very emotional and very relatable at times, and I know that I'm going to enjoy her books. Whether they're 5 stars or not is a totally other question, but I just always find them so enjoyable and just so like heartwarming and comforting to read, and this is no different. I'm really enjoying it so far, but I expected to. I really like Daphne. I'm also like, my brain just thinks of Bridgerton every time I say Daphne. I recently just watched the first 4 episodes of season 3. I've been rewatching the first 2 seasons to prepare for season 3. Bridgerton is on the mind right now, so I'm just like, Daphne from Bridgerton. But I really like Daphne. I really like Miles. To me, he feels like actually a slightly different male character for Emily Henry. Like, I feel like she has these certain male love interests that she likes to write and she sticks to it, and that's totally fine. It works. Like, don't fix what isn't broken. Like, it works for me. I enjoy it every time. But for me, Miles actually feels like slightly different, which I wasn't expecting, especially because when I first started this book, I was talking to Darian, my bestie, not to put her on blast here, but she wasn't, I don't think she disliked Miles, but she said he was a bit bland. That's how she described him. And so I kind of was like, oh, interesting. But I actually feel like he, to me, feels very different for a male love interest from Emily Henry. Like, he actually feels the most distinct compared to her other ones. And I love the other ones. I'm just saying, he feels a bit different, so I'm eating it up. But yeah, I like the characters. I like that Daphne works at a library and she like works specifically, I think, with like the children. Like, she does like the story times with them, and that's really fun. And there's also a fun side character that also works at the library that Daphne seems to be becoming friends with, who she is also a hoot. I love her. I feel like I always really love the side characters in Emily Henry's books for the most part. Book Lovers was the only one where I was like, on some of the side characters, but for the most part, her side characters are just so fun to read about. And yeah, I don't know, I'm just really enjoying it. But I also expected to enjoy it. Like I said, there's just something so comforting going into an Emily Henry book because you kind of know what to expect. And I'm ready to be emotionally destroyed because I have a feeling this is going to hurt my feelings. But I'm having a really good time so far. And yeah, I just wanted to give an update when I'm still towards the beginning, because I have a feeling I'm going to read this really quickly. I've read like over 100 pages in basically one sitting. So I wanted to give an update before I got too far. But so far, I'm liking it. I don't know if it's going to be 5 star. I don't know if it's like where it's going to fall in my Emily Henry ranking, but I am enjoying it, which is just what I wanted. All right, 'tis the season. We go from one extreme to another. It's basically summer out. It was not this nice like last week, and it's going to be so hot this week and then rainy next week. But that does mean you can probably hear a fan in the background. I'm also going to make this quick so I can shut my blinds and block out the sun. I'm letting it in now to film this, but I want to block it out as much as possible because it'll get way too hot in here. But I did want to quickly update you all on my final thoughts on Funny Story by Emily Henry. And y'all, I can always count on Emily Henry. You know, she never disappoints me. Again, like I was saying before, even if her books aren't a 5-star for me, I know I'm still going to really enjoy them and the reading experience and the characters and the emotional moments, but also the funny moments. And I just feel like there's so much to love about her books. Whether, you know, each one is your new favorite, there's obviously like so many people rank Emily Henry's books, and that's always a fun thing to do. People have their different preferences and ones that they enjoy, but I just feel like there's something so enjoyable about her books that no matter what, I'm gonna love them. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. I think I read this in the span of like 2 or 3 days, which for me at this point in my life is quite fast. I like could not put it down. I just couldn't stop thinking about it when I wasn't reading it and just like wanted to be reading it. I just loved these characters so much. I loved Daphne. I loved that she was a librarian. I feel like a lot of what she was struggling with personally, like aside from the relationship drama, both with Miles and her ex, like I feel like she had a lot going on personally, and that's something I also really love about Emily Henry's books. There's more to her characters than just being like in a romantic relationship and forwarding the romantic story. It's not just about that. It's about these characters learning and growing as people. And that's something that I also really loved about Miles as well. And don't get me wrong, like I love all of Emily Henry's love interests. Like I'm not saying one is better than the other because of these things. Like I love them all. I will take anything she gives me. But I feel like for a lot of the love interests in Emily Henry's books, yes, they do have other things going on in their lives. Like there are definitely other things that they're going through, but I feel like mainly their biggest personality trait is just being obsessed with the main character, which like as they should, and I do love that. But I feel like Miles was obsessed with Daphne, but also had his own struggles as well, more so I feel like than some of the other characters, or maybe it was just written about more. I don't know. He just genuinely seemed like a flawed character and just like a real human being instead of just being obsessed with the main character. And he was obsessed with her. Like the whole plot of this book was him being like, you know what? We both have Sundays off from work, and guess what we're gonna do? We're gonna hang out every single Sunday, and also I'm gonna take days off throughout the work week so that we can hang out, and also I'm just gonna find any opportunity to be with you. Like he was definitely obsessed in his own way, but I also think there was so much more to his character and was like a deeply flawed character, and both of them had things that they were struggling with, things from their upbringing and just like their mental health and things going on with that I feel like it just made them very well rounded. And so I think because of that, like the conflict, the third act conflict in this book made a lot of sense to me. I think the reactions that the characters had to each other was fair. I think the frustration that they felt and them being upset, especially I feel like on Daphne's part being upset with Miles, like I found that very understandable, but I also feel like he did the proper amount of groveling. I don't know if everyone's gonna feel that way, but that's how I feel. I generally feel like Emily Henry and her like third act conflicts, they always make a lot of sense to me personally, but I also know that that's not the case for everyone. But I don't know. I just like Emily Henry. I love what she does. I love the way she writes. I love the way she crafts characters and their flaws and their relationships with not only one another, but their friends and their family. I found the family dynamics within this book very interesting to read about. I loved reading about Miles' sister when she kind of came into the book. And I also found like the exploration of how their like relationships were with both of their parents. Like I found that very interesting, and I think that that's going to be relatable for a lot of people. I also really love the friendships that blossomed within this book. Daphne and the coworker that I think I talked about, like they became really close throughout this book, and actually like the first time I cried reading this book was a scene between Daphne and this new friend. So I just really loved the friendship dynamics. I feel like I often like the, again, friendship dynamics in Emily Henry's books. And I just also loved that Daphne and Miles like were friends. Like they very clearly, like pretty early on in knowing one another, kind of were attracted to one another, but I feel like the foundation of their relationship was built off of this friendship that they kind of created, like spending all this time together in this apartment, but also like the Sundays that they spent together. Like they just had such a strong like friendship dynamic, which I loved. And again, might not be why people love this book. I feel like friends to lovers is not everyone's thing. I personally really enjoy it, so I think that's why it also worked for me. But yeah, I just had a good time, and I'm also sweating, so we're gonna wrap this up. I give this 4.5 stars, and I think my new Emily Henry ranking as of right now goes as follows. We have Happy Place, then Beach Read as a very, very close second. It pains me that something in life is above Beach Read because I love it so much, but Happy Place was next level for me. But they're two like of my all-time favorite books, not just Emily Henry or romance books, like in general. I just love them so much. So it feels wrong having Beach Read second, but it's a very close second. Then I put Funny Story, and then do I want to say my next two? I feel like this is a hot take, but then I think I'd put People We Meet on Vacation and then Book Lovers last. I'm sorry, I know. Book Lovers, people love that book. I do too. All of her books are either like 4 or 5 stars for me, so I still love them all. But that, I think, is my current ranking as of right now. Obviously, I just finished this like a couple days ago. Things could change, and I'm also going to be, I think, just like continuing to reread her books all the time, so I'm sure my ranking will change. But that's how I feel right now. I really enjoyed this. Made me emotional, as I expected, and I think if your ranking of Emily Henry books is similar to mine, you would also enjoy this. Okay, hello, Lisa, a little bit from the future, popping in before we wrap up the funny story portion of this vlog. I forgot to mention that Emily Henry, she just always understands me, she gets me. At one point, there was a Tessa Dare mention in this book, and I was just like, oh my god, how fun. And then like a few pages later, she references Beach Read, which I'm pretty sure that Emily Henry has mentioned the characters or like referenced Beach Read in some way in every single book that she's published since Beach Read. Like, I feel like there's a Beach Read reference in every book. I could be wrong, but I feel like they've been mentioned every single time. So it's just like, it should be expected by now. I shouldn't still be taken by surprise when it is referenced. But I was, and it was amazing, and I got very emotional, and I was texting Darian about the fact that there was a Tessa Dare mention, and she referenced Beach Read, and I was like, in my head, I was like, now she just needs to reference Taylor Swift. Like, that's it. That's all she has left to do. And then she did. So Emily Henry, she just gets me. She writes these books for me, I think. It feels very personal. But yeah, other than that, I also did want to say, like with Happy Place, when I read Happy Place, I made a playlist, and it was called Happy Place Taylor's version, and it was all songs by Taylor Swift, of course, that kind of detail the story of the book itself and these characters' relationships and their like personal journeys. And of course, I did the same thing with Funny Story. So I have a Funny Story Taylor's version playlist, and I'll link it down below. And I think this is now just going to become a tradition when I read new Emily Henry books. I think I need to go back and make them for her other books as well. So yeah, if you want to take a peruse, if you like Emily Henry and you like Taylor Swift, which I do feel like the Venn diagram of the crossover of those things is a circle. So if you are interested in checking that out, I'll have the playlist linked below, and I'm just very happy with that playlist. It just makes me so happy. It's my 2 favorite things, Emily Henry, Taylor Swift. My favorite blondes.
I've got an internet crush. She's not a celebrity, but she's taken. Still can't help falling in love. Can't take the hint and give up. I've got it.
Alright, you once again can probably hear some fans. It has become summer in New England over the past couple of days. I'll try to edit out the fan noises, but we gotta keep them on so that I don't pass out. Thanks for understanding. But I am here to give my first initial update on Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. This is the 3rd and final book for this vlog, and I'm hoping I can finish it today because I want this vlog to go up tomorrow, and I still have a good amount of the book to read. So that's going to be the plan for today, doing a lot of reading. Some first initial thoughts on Just for the Summer. First of all, let me give you a description, a synopsis, if you will. So in this book, you're following Justin and Emma, and both of them kind of have this similar curse upon them where basically once they date somebody and they break up with that person, their ex or that person that they were dating, they go on to find the one, their soulmate, the person they're gonna marry. So they've kind of deemed themselves the one before the one. And Emma finds out about Justin through this Reddit thread that he's created and finds out that they have a similar curse. And so then the two of them start messaging back and forth about it. And so they decide what they should do is that they should date each other and then break up, and then hopefully that will cancel out their curse and they'll be able to go on and find their person. They'll find the one after dating each other. So Emma and her best friend Maddie as well, they're both traveling nurses, so they're often going to different places for a certain amount of time and working there, and then they pick a new place. So this time around they decided to go to where Justin lives, which I just had to quickly remind myself it is in Minnesota. But Emma and Maddie end up choosing Minnesota as their next location so that Emma can meet Justin, they can do this fake dating situation and then break up so that they can go on to meet their person. So that all sounds very fun and good and very much a rom-com vibe, but both of these characters have a lot going on in their personal lives, especially regarding their relationships with their parents, specifically both with their moms. It says on the back of the description that Emma's toxic mother shows up up, and that Justin has to assume guardianship of his 3 siblings. So they kind of have a lot on their plate regarding their parents and their family situation. And I know this is going to be devastating. I've seen people talk about this book and like the emotional turmoil it has put people through. So I'm like kind of ready for it, but not really. There's also content warnings and trigger warnings at the beginning of the book, which I find very helpful and I think very important. And she does say, like, if you consider that spoilers, you can just start on reading the book. But if you need these warnings, here they are, which I think is great. But yeah, just reading like through the content warnings and just seeing people's like reaction to this book, I know it is going to be extremely emotional. And am I ready? No. But Justin and Emma, I think, have a lot to learn from one another because they're very much dealing with things with their family and with their moms very differently. Emma is a lot more empathetic, whereas Justin is very angry, and I think they can kind of learn a little bit of that from each other. Like, I feel like Emma should be more angry with what her mom has done to her, and I think Justin could definitely learn to be more empathetic and view things differently. So I think it's going to be interesting to see them kind of learn from each other, but I'm just also scared to see what happens with that whole storyline with both of their like relationships with their moms and their families and what goes on with that, because I have a feeling it's going to be emotionally devastating. But yeah, like I was saying, I do have a good amount of the book left to read. I'm on chapter 17, page 163. So I'm a good amount of the way through. I'm definitely really liking it. I kind of forget every time I pick up a Abby Jimenez book that I do sometimes find her writing a bit, I don't know if cringy is the right word, but it can be very cheesy. And I feel like sometimes it's just a lot more noticeable than like other books where, yes, there's cheesy moments, but sometimes I like just, it doesn't register as much. Whereas sometimes with her like dialogue or just the way certain things happen, I do find a bit like cheesy to a point where it's like it's noticeable, but I still enjoy her books. I like her characters. I like her banter. I like the relationships that come out of her book. So it's not affecting my enjoyment too much, but it definitely is noticeable for me for some reason with her books and her writing. But this is actually set in the same like fictional world. It's like a companion book to both Part of Your World and Yours Truly, which Part of Your World I gave 4.5 stars. Yours Truly was a 5-star, one of my favorite books of last year. So it clearly doesn't affect my enjoyment too much, but it is something that I just like have to get adjusted to, I think, when I start her books. But yeah, it is also very cool that this is set in the Part of Your World, Yours Truly universe. We've definitely seen some references to characters and places from those 2 books. There was a Yours Truly reference, like a character that came up from Yours Truly that I like immediately clocked. I was like, oh my god, I get it. Like, I see you. I see what you're doing. Very cool. And then there's another character that comes in that's definitely more from Part of Your World. And the very first time we see this character, went right over my head. Didn't even think about it. And then I saw this character in a different scene, in a different scenario, and they were in a different setting, and I went, oh, wait a minute. I know who this character is. So I'm kind of panicking about that, to be honest. I just have a feeling that that aspect is not going to go well. I don't know. I'm just very scared that this book is going to emotionally destroy me. I'm smiling, but I'm terrified. But I really, really hope that we see the characters from Part of Your World and Yours Truly show up, like the main characters, the characters that I love, because I think it'd be so fun. I have heard that like the way that this book wraps up, it does feel like the conclusion to this kind of companion series. So I'm thinking that they will show up, and I'm just so excited. If Jacob comes across these pages, I may burst into tears. But other than the more like emotional things going on with these characters and, you know, their issues, their like personal problems that are going on in this book, the more romantic romance aspects of this book I am really liking. I think they're very, very sweet. Again, a bit corny and a bit cheesy, but like I'm really enjoying it. I really like both Emma and Justin at this point. Justin is such a sweetie pie, and when they like first meet each other, because their relationship started online and then like they started talking first online, and then when she moves to Minnesota, they meet up. And the first time they meet up, Justin was so nervous and it was so precious. But also, I don't want to say what it is because I don't want to spoil anybody, but he picks her up for their very first date, and he's like, I have a few things in mind, few things we can do. And the very first thing that they do, that he like brings her to do, it is so me-coded, and if a man did that for me, I would be ready for marriage. So yeah, I'm really liking it so far. I really like the characters. I like the romantic moments, the banter, and just like the kind of instant connection that Emma and Justin have, and like how they kind of instantly are just drawn to each other and trust each other. And I like that there's this whole like scene where they're like, we're just gonna always be honest with one another, and like if one of us asks what the other's thinking, like we have to be honest, we have to tell them. And I'm just really liking the setup of their relationship and like the establishment of their like feelings for one another. I just really like it. And I'm terrified about the more like difficult things that these characters are experiencing, the trauma that they're gonna have to come face to face with, because Emma, bless her, she's very much like, I'm so mentally stable. All of the things that have happened with my mother in the past, like, it's fine. Like, I went to therapy. I'm not traumatized anymore. And it's like, girly pop, I hate to break it to you, but I think you're still not fully recovered from this situation. I don't think things are fully resolved up here. So terrified about what's going to happen there, but very excited to keep going. And I think I'll probably update you all once I finish the book, or if I start sobbing uncontrollably, whatever happens first. Girl, I'm not, I'm not even, okay, I'm like halfway. I'm already sobbing. I'm in danger. Thank you. Just me, my glass of wine, and a new favorite book of the year, Against the World. Hello. Yes, it is the same day. I've basically just been wearing the same clothes, I feel like, this whole vlog, but it's the same day that I first edited it. I've had 3 sips of this, so I'm not drunk. I'm just emotional. Anyway, it's the same day since I updated you on this the first time. But I read the whole thing this morning. I read like over 250 pages today because I couldn't put it down. I'm hurt. This had everything that I wanted in a romance. It not only had such lovable characters that I came to care for, I cared for both of their personal journeys and struggles and hardships and the people that were important to them, like all these other side characters, but I also cared for them and their relationship and was so invested in them and their happiness. Also, I meant to open my blinds to help with the light. I had 3 sips of wine. What's going on? Oh, that looks better. Okay. Oh, if only I'd done that the first time. Anyway, yeah, I was so invested in every character's story, and I loved it so much. It definitely had those emotional moments that I was terrified for. I cried multiple times. Balancing my wine next to my laptop, that feels dangerous, but this just has everything that I want in a romance. Like I was saying, the characters, but also the more emotional moments, but also this book was so funny. Like, I knew Abby Jimenez like always got a good tee-hee and ha-ha out of me, but there were genuinely so many moments where I actually like let out a like belly laugh, and I was like, girl, what is going on? I am reading a book. This is fictional. Why am I laughing this hard? There were so many moments that were so sweet. I loved Justin and Emma's relationship so much. The way Justin showed his love and his care for her. There is this very specific scene that shows just like how far he's willing to go for her, and just that whole thing. It was so good. He's so good. He's everything to me. Abby Jimenez is really proving that men with J names are evil. Like, she's proving that wrong. She even made that joke in this book, but like Justin and Jacob from Yours Truly, they prove that theory wrong. Yeah, I don't know. I'm so scatterbrained because I only finished this like a few hours ago, but I absolutely loved this. It was a 5 out of 5. Like I said, one of my favorite books of the year now. And also, like, there definitely were cameos from other characters from the other books in this companion series. And it's so funny because I saw people like in reviews being like, wow, if only I had remembered characters and all of these things from the previous books, because I've seen like people get surprised by something that happens in this book because it connects to the previous books. And I thought I had it all figured out. I thought that I was picking up on all the cameos. Turns out I didn't. I didn't get all of the references. And I was just as surprised as everybody else. I literally sat there and gasped and had to put the book down and went, wait a minute. And then just would keep reading and then would have to pause. Like, the twisty-do that Abby Jimenez pulled over on me, even though I've literally read the books in the series. Like, how did she trick me? I should have known. I've read the other books. So yeah, that was very shocking, very surprising, but I just really loved it. I just loved it so much. I don't even know what else to say. I thought that the way that Emma and like the situation with her mom was handled, like I thought it was handled really well, because like I was saying earlier, like Emma thought that she was like totally fine, but she clearly was not. And that really comes to a head at a certain point in this book. And it's very much like a realization that she has that she like has to get help. And obviously I can't speak on it as someone who has not had the same experiences or same like mental health situations that she has, but I thought it was done really well. And just like every step of the way of this book and how everything was handled, I thought was so well done. Both Emma's relationship with her mom, but Justin, and him having to be now the guardians of his siblings, and that whole situation, like all of the problems that they faced both on their own but also together as a couple, I just thoroughly like understood where it was going. Like I really enjoyed the way it was all handled. I feel like even though Yours Truly was also a 5-star for me and I loved it, I did get to a point with, I feel like, the third act conflict where I was like, I'm not necessarily loving the way that it was done. I could understand where she was coming from and like why it was written the way that was. It was understandable, but I didn't necessarily love it. But at that point in the book, I was just loving it so much. I was like, I don't even care. And this is 5-star. I love it so much. But there was never that point in this book. Like every step of the way, I just understood all of the choices that Abby Jimenez made. I feel like everything made a lot of sense for these characters and their traumas and what they were going through. And it also was extremely emotional, but so good. What else can I say? I need to drink more wine because I'm emotional. I thought the dates they went on were so sweet, so thoughtful. I don't know. There was nothing I disliked. Every moment was swoon-worthy or emotional. It had me laughing. It had me crying. I felt so connected to all of these characters. And I just, like, it is just everything I could want out of a romance book. So yeah, 5 out of 5 stars. I don't know what else you want me to say. I really want to read more from this author. I want to read some of her earlier books, but I'm scared because I know people have like mixed feelings on some of her books before Part of Your World, so I'm a little bit more hesitant, but I think going forward, everything that Abby Jimenez writes, like, I will be reading. I will be picking up, and I just love it so much. Love her. Thank you so much. Definitely like one of my favorite books, if not my favorite book that I've read this year. I don't know. It also just made me want to like go back and reread all 3 of these books that are in this companion series from the beginning to see if I can pick up on all of the references and all of the things being set up. I love the way she connected them. She is so big-brained. Yeah, I don't know. The actual romantic relationship, the characters, the traumatic experiences and mental health aspects of this book, the familial issues that these characters had, the friendships, like everything about it, the setting, just so good. So good. Please read it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Abby Jimenez, for once again providing me with a fave book. Loved it so much. But that is indeed the final book for this anticipated romance reading vlog. I'm very happy that I managed to finish everything I wanted to in time to get this vlog up tomorrow. I'm gonna have to edit this clip, but I think then it's ready to go. We definitely had a bit of a mixed bag with what I read for this vlog. Obviously, Wild Love was not the new favorite that I was expecting it to be, but that's okay because Funny Story and Just for the Summer really came in clutch and provided me with that great romance joy that I was looking for. Definitely let me know if you want to see more vlogs where I read anticipated reads, whether they're like new releases or just books that I'm like really excited about. Let me know if you like this format because I've kind of missed doing more themed reading vlogs, but this one was a lot more chill than like having to like search out a TBR through like other like recommendations or things like that. Like this was all just books I was excited to read and I made a theme out of it. So let me know if you want to see more vlogs like this. Also would love to know if you've read any of the books I read in this vlog and your thoughts on them. I'd definitely love to chat about any of them down below in the comments, but I think that's going to be it for this romance reading vlog. So thank you all so much for watching and I will see you in my next one. Bye. And cheers. Time to go cry over Just for the Summer a little bit more.